what advice would you give them as they follow their own paths?
I think it was just like an insane dissonance.
Ibtihal is a Moroccan software engineer who made headlines across the world after challenging Microsoft AI's work with the Israeli military.
It just felt like living a double life.
I'd love to know how Microsoft actually responded.
If you're a gamer, make sure that you're looking into who owns like what you're consuming.
What was so surprising was even when you were protesting, his response was, I hear your protest, I hear your protest. And it just makes you think like they're not even listening. They just want to shut you up.
50,000 people have died, and Microsoft started this genocide in our region.
Thank you for your protest, I hear you.
Your Syrian family know about this, Mustafa.
I hear your protest, thank you.
Shame on you!
What point did you make the decision and sort of emotionally prepare yourself for the consequences? What were you feeling? What was running through your head?
Don't fall for defeatism.
I'm actually an employee at Microsoft. I'm here with my colleague.
Previous struggles for liberation have taken decades.
Welcome to the first autumn edition of the Ilford in Conversation community series. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces from our campaign, so many familiar faces from the launch of Ilford in Conversation, the event we had with Jeremy Corbyn and Andrew Feinstein in July. And it's just as wonderful to see so many new faces with us here tonight. I want to particularly give a massive shout out to a local Scouts group here with us, 7th Good Mays. Welcome, guys. This month, we are absolutely honoured to be hosting an incredible guest, an inspiration to so many, the woman who took on Microsoft, Ibtihal Aboussad. Can we give her a massive round of applause? She has joined us all the way from Canada, and we are so grateful that she's here with us tonight. What's even more special about tonight is that this event came together almost by chance. And many of you know it was very short notice. But when we were approached and when we found out that Ibtihal was in the UK, we moved quickly to make this happen. And at such a short notice, I honestly didn't expect the incredible reaction that we had from our community. Demand was so high that we had to even create a waiting list. And sadly, not everyone could join us tonight because of capacity. But if you guys are here tonight, congratulations, you made it in. Next time, make sure to book tickets as soon as they go out. And as promised, you know, we want to keep these events free to make sure they're just inclusive. And so many of you can come every single time. Now, to begin with, I just want to say a few words about the latest political events. I know that last week's political events were disheartening for so many of us, especially for those of us who were excited about a national movement and for so many millions of people across the country who are desperate for radical and meaningful change. But I want to remind you of something powerful, and that is what we achieved in Ilford North in 2024 was because of you. It was because of a strong grassroots, people-powered movement. We didn't rely on a party machine. We relied on people in our community who believed in a cause greater than themselves. And so I, like so many of you, continue to watch developments closely and, of course, support any efforts that align with our shared values of justice and equality. And we will work with anyone whose values align with us. But again, we have a local responsibility. We have to create spaces where people listen to one another, where we can find ways to work together for the greater causes that we believe in. And that is why Ilford in Conversation is so important, because it brings people together from every corner of our community, and it gives us a chance to share views, challenge ideas, and grow collectively. Now, I'm aware that locals are coming together and organising. I fully support local-led initiatives. Just as our campaign was locally led and people-powered, I support those moves and, of course, will support fellow true independents that are driven by the same values and passion like I was. This is only the beginning of our new community initiative, and we look forward to keeping this community spirit alive. Now that's out of the way, I want to take a moment to just thank Hidden Space. So many of you who joined us at the last event know how much I spoke about the kindness and generosity of our community. The owners of Hidden Space, this venue that we're in right now, are the same people behind the brilliant local business Nonstop right above us. And during our campaign, whenever they spotted a volunteer wearing a bright Leanne purple t-shirt, they offered free food and free drinks with such generosity. And they continue to support us today. And so I want to make a heartfelt call out to all of you. Please support this fantastic local business. Not only do they serve amazing food and amazing chai, but they also do so much to show their solidarity with Palestine. So let's give it up for Hidden Space and Non-Stop. How many of you are here in this venue for the very first time today? A lot of us. It really is a hidden space. But we've discovered it now, and going forward, we're going to have many more community meetings here. Now, let's talk about Palestine. You have all seen the headlines. The UK has recognized Palestine, something they should have done ages ago. But let's be real. This does nothing to stop the genocide of the Palestinian people. Recognition means nothing while Britain keeps arming Israel. Symbolic gestures don't stop bombs, they don't stop slaughter. And I want you to never forget that this Labour government approved more weapons for Israel in just 3 months than the Tories did in 4 years. Right now, as Gaza burns, those weapons are still being sent. Recognition of a Palestinian state functions as a distraction from complicity, and it will remain an empty gesture if not accompanied by material action to end this genocide and apartheid. And so it's so important that people like us, that we do not let this government deflect from the demands for real accountability. Like many of you, I can hardly believe that it has been 2 years since this genocide began. Exactly 23 months and 2 weeks. 2 years of massacre, of devastation, of entire Palestinian families erased. And still there are mornings where I wake up praying, it's all just a nightmare. But it isn't. It's real and it's ongoing. And what is the UK government's response? Not to stop the genocide, not to end the arms sales, but to pat themselves on the back for recognizing Palestine, while people are being slaughtered in real time. Recognition, again, is meaningless when it comes hand in hand with complicity. Now, complicity has many different layers. Governments, corporations, institutions, they all play a role. And it's so important for us to understand each and every one of those layers, because only when we are informed can we resist them effectively. And tonight, we are very fortunate to have with us someone who's dedicated so much of her work to exposing one of these layers, big tech's complicity in this genocide. Microsoft fired her for defending Palestine. It is an absolute honor to welcome our guest this evening, the incredible Ibtihal Aboussad. Ibtihal is a Moroccan software engineer, a Harvard graduate, and a human rights advocate who made headlines across the world after challenging Microsoft AI's work with the Israeli military. On the company's 50th anniversary celebration, she stood up and she held them to account. And that courageous act cost her her job, but it amplified her voice for justice. How many of you saw her video where she actually challenged Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa?
So the question I wanted to address today is really simple. What does all this mean?
Mustafa, shame on you. You say you claim that you care about using AI for good, but Microsoft sells AI weapons to the Israeli military. 50,000 people have died, and Microsoft powers this genocide in our region.
Thank you for your protest, I hear you.
Your Syrian family know about this, Mustafa.
I hear your protest, thank you.
Shame on you. You are a war profiteer.
I hear you,
Stop
thank
using
you.
AI for genocide, Mustafa. Stop using AI for genocide in our region. You have blood on your hands. All of Microsoft has blood on its hands. How do you all celebrate when Microsoft is killing children? Shame on you all.
Thank you. I hear your protest, thank you.
Many of us. It went absolutely viral, reaching millions of people around the world. And so today, Ibtihal has become a symbol for all of us. Tonight, we are honored to directly hear from her. And as we approach 2 years of Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza, her story really invites us to reflect on what courage, what sacrifice really look like in our own lives and in our own communities. So the structure of tonight will be simple. First, a conversation with me and Ibtihal, followed by an open audience Q&A. So get your questions ready. We want this to be as interactive and engaging as possible. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Ibtihal Aboussad. Ibtihal, as the genocide in Gaza was taking place, you were working at Microsoft. What was that experience like? Balancing what you were witnessing behind the scenes at work with the devastation that you were seeing unfold in Gaza. How did you navigate witnessing the destruction live streamed while also seeing what was happening inside the company at Microsoft?
Yeah. Hello and salam alaikum, everyone. First of all, Leanne is who I aspire to be someday, but for now we'll settle for just talking to Leanne. This is a really immense honor, and yeah, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. So on that question, I think it was just like an insane dissonance to spend weekends at like protests, at fundraisers, at Palestine community events, and then, you know, wake up the next morning and go to work at this company that we knew had ties to Israel. Like, it just felt like living a double life in a way. Like, how can I, I would say like the first year and a half of the genocide, of the current phase of the genocide was really tough for that reason. And, I think even like within work, like people would be like, how was your weekend? And I felt like I couldn't say, I would always just be like, what did I do this weekend? I think I was just at home. Like it truly felt like it was not an environment where I could even bring up Palestine safely because of the repression on workers who have spoken up inside the company before. And so that it was a terrible dissonance. And I think, unfortunately, it's a dissonance that I feel now with living in Canada, similarly, of, like I'm trying to do, to spend my time like organizing for Palestinian liberation. And at the same time, at the end of the day, my paycheck, tax dollars are taken out. It goes to my MP who defunded UNRWA, who arrested protesters for Palestine. So just to say, like, that dissonance is always there as people in these complicit countries and corporations. But I'm glad that one layer at least is I've gotten rid of, which is the work at Microsoft.
Can you tell us more about your background, how you came to work at AI and Microsoft, what your role was and what you believed about Microsoft's mission when you actually joined?
It's really ironic. So I was an intern at Microsoft. I was on like a security team and I was like, this is useless. This doesn't help the world. Let me find somewhere at Microsoft that does good. And so I applied to switch to a team that does like speech recognition and translation services. So the way they marketed it to me as someone that was trying to join the team is, if someone has like a hearing disability, we provide them with transcriptions. Like, we are like this like champion of like inclusivity. We do translation work so that Microsoft products are available to everyone. Like, it was this whole like, we're changing the world. Like, come work here and you're going to change people's lives. And that was what sold me on Microsoft. Ironically, it was like I had like gotten an offer at like Google, for example, and I was like, no, Google is evil. Like, let me go to Microsoft. They're the good ones in the industry. And so that was initially like, I was like, AI is the like a force for good. And I'm going to go on this team and do great things. And the reason I say it's ironic is because my, I guess, tipping point in all of this, like the moment where I realized I can no longer like stay here at all is in February. So about 6 weeks before like the disruption that was televised, I found out that the organization that I was partnered with, like that does like speech recognition and translation, they sold personalized technology to Israel to spy on Palestinians, to transcribe phone calls in Arabic and synthesize them and translate them for targeted purposes. So imagine like the shock when you're like, this company is bad, but at least I'm in the good side of it. That was my, I guess, cop out for a year, like since all the news started coming out. And then you realize, like the work that I thought was good is also driven by profit and by blood. So that was the intent behind joining. And then obviously how things panned out.
What was your exact role in Microsoft and how many years were you there?
I was there for nearly 4 years. And so I was a software engineer within the AI division.
And at what point was it that you really became aware that Microsoft was complicit in this genocide?
Yeah, I think the complicity news of Microsoft have really been like the gift that keeps on giving. Like every 2 months, something more egregious comes out. And so initially, sometime in 2024, it was uncovered that, they have contracts with Israel in terms of the cloud. And I was like, okay, I don't work on the cloud. They're the bad division. We're good. And then slowly things started coming out like statements in support of Israel and our Israeli workers, nothing on Palestine. And then in the fall of 2024, 2 workers at Microsoft organized a peaceful vigil at the Microsoft HQ to mourn Palestinian martyrs. And then that same night, they got fired for no disruption, no unlawful activities, just for holding a vigil where people cried for our martyrs. And so that was in fall of 2024. And slowly I started realizing, this company is actually like very complicit, much more than people realize. And then, as I mentioned, like for me, the tipping point was the February, AP News investigation that showed just how much AI was used to decide where the bombs were going to be sent by Israel through the personalized contracts. And so, that's when I decided, okay, I cannot stay here. But then the rest of the story is just like, I didn't want to just quit and give them the pleasure of just having lost like a pro-Palestine employee and moving on. And so that's where that whole disruption came out of, like leaving with a bang, as we say, or, exposing them in the process.
Steve Ballmer, former CEO of Microsoft, he once said that Microsoft is as much an Israeli company as an American company. So from your perspective, how deep are those ties? Like, what does it really reveal about the depth of collaboration between big tech companies and Israel?
Yeah. On top of that quote, Netanyahu said in a meeting with the Microsoft CEO while shaking hands, the partnership between, I'm paraphrasing, but the partnership between Microsoft and Israel is like a marriage made in heaven that took place here on earth. This is Netanyahu. And so a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people know about Google and Amazon and their contracts with Israel. But the thing about Microsoft is a lot of this is undercover. That's why I'm saying it's the gift that keeps on getting, we keep uncovering layers and layers to this complicity. And the thing that makes Microsoft worse, Microsoft is the only company, by the way, a tech company that made it to the BDS priority list. So Amazon, Airbnb, Google, they're a pressure target, but Microsoft was priority. That's top tier complicit company for BDS. And the reason for that is Microsoft is not just, it doesn't just have, as I thought, one division that collaborates with Israel and that's it. It's embedded in every aspect of the genocide and the apartheid in Palestine. It's the cloud, AI, storage. Recently, I don't know if people saw, but there was an article that came out a few weeks ago that showed how Microsoft provides customized storage services to Israel to store every Palestinian phone call. Not just Gaza, not just a specific sector. Any call in Palestine, Microsoft, it's so many calls. The goal of this contract was up to 1 million calls per hour. That was their goal. That Microsoft had to expand their storage capacities to accommodate Israel. So that's another aspect. It's the surveillance. It's the apartheid. The prison system is powered by Microsoft Azure. The targeting, as I was saying, it's just embedded in every layer of how Israel continues to oppress Palestinians. That's what makes it, so essential to Israel in these people's quotes.
Definitely. I think many of us learned something new there. We just don't see how deep the collaboration really is before we really are informed about it. Ibtihal, I really want you to tell us, what conversations did you have before actually deciding to make a public interruption? Did you try raising concerns first, informally? And if so, what was the response?
Yeah. like it's not like just myself. Like there's a lot of concerned employees at Microsoft who for a year and a half since October, between like October 2023 and April 2025, tried these like preferred avenues that Microsoft says, you know, this is how you should be raising concerns. This is how you should be civilized. And so we tried submitting questions whenever there was a town hall with like executives, deleted. Some people tried emailing executives and they did get HR cases. Some people would post on like company forums. There was someone who also got fired from Microsoft. His name is Hussam, who at one point was just posting about, oh, did you guys know that Microsoft is complicit in the genocide? Got an HR case, and then they literally financially punished him, like took away from his compensation just for talking about the genocide on company forums. So we tried these avenues. We tried meeting with HR, and it would always be one of two outcomes: either like silence, like, oh, yeah, we'll get back to you. We hear you, you know, like we understand your concerns, radio silence, or in the worst case scenario, repression, you know, vigil, you get fired. Town hall questions, your manager is like, can we have a word? So before that disruption, and like a lot of people are like, oh, like that was stupid. Like you lost your job. You could have done things internally. The issue is so many people tried to change things internally. And, you know, Gaza is an urgent, like the genocide in Gaza is an urgent one to halt. So we couldn't be like, we'll play the long game and for 5 years we'll try from the inside. No, that's why we escalated and started moving to disruptions and encampments. Yeah.
And even those comments about like, we hear you, we hear you. I think what was so surprising was even when you were protesting, his response was, I hear your protest, I hear your protest. And it just makes you think like they're not even listening. They just want to shut you up no matter what you say. How did you really like weigh the risks, you know, losing your job, professional repercussions, your personal safety versus what you're speaking about right now, the moral urgency of speaking out? How did you make the decision? And at what point did you make the decision and sort of emotionally prepare yourself for the consequences?
Yeah, I would say, like, first of all, like I'm always grounded in the fact that like I might lose a job, I might lose a visa, but like none of this compares to what Palestinians are losing to resist. You know, these are people that have stayed on their lands for decades, fighting, losing family members, losing homes, losing everything just for freedom and liberation. So I think always like staying grounded in that makes all these like material things that we like let hold us back, makes them seem so small. You know, when you yeah, like there's no job that compares to, you know, losing your home because you never left Gaza, because you wanted to fight for your land. So just given that as a disclaimer, that I think a lot of people are like, what, like when I meet them are like, oh my God, like you lost a whole job. What is a job when we're watching a genocide? You know, what is like a salary when we're watching a genocide? And so for me, the risk assessment was just, it was like grounded in this and in the fact that so many people like before me have lost so much in advocating for Palestine. Like I was not the first, will not be the last. What makes it that my comfort and my, you know, luxury is above, you know, doing the right thing. So that's one thing. The second one is just the moral cost of staying at Microsoft was so big that honestly, like they could have like quadrupled like my income and promoted me to like senior principal, whatever manager. Like just the possibility that, okay, what I worked on today might be sent to Israel, like there is nothing that can compensate for that. So the balance was really like it was not like, you know, at this like balanced level, like it was very skewed. But yeah, as I mentioned, like it was just, I did not want to just, you know, leave and sure, I'd be okay. Like I would have absolved myself of that complicity. But I realized like it was time to, especially after the more investigations started coming out, we all owe it to use like whatever privileges we have, is what I realized, to just disrupt and escalate and make it costly for them to support genocide. You know, it's like, this will not be, this is what they care about. They care about profit. They care about PR. How do we hit them there?
100%. I think Ibtihal is very humble in her ways, but I think we can all see that the action that she did really inspired people globally around the world. And she says she's not the first, certainly not the last. After what she did, I think many people really took you as an example, and it really made people question themselves, you know, in what role they're in, what positions, you know, how they can really become a symbol of courage and sacrifice like you. I'd be really interested to know, you know, just take us back to the moments leading up to walking onto that stage when you were about to disrupt the celebration. What were you feeling? What was running through your head?
Yeah. So for context, I'm based in Canada, and this VIP anniversary that Vanya and I disrupted was in Seattle. So it was already like, you know, on the flight there, I was like mentally preparing, like, I'm flying to go possibly get fired. Like it wasn't just like, I think a lot of people also think, you know, it was a spur of the moment. Like I was just in the event, and then, but it was like a strategic move. Like I'm part of the campaign No Water for Apartheid, which is a bunch of Microsoft employees and former employees coming together to organize against Microsoft's contracts.
And also, I want you to mention that you weren't just there, but it was also selected. Like there was a whole raffle to even be part of the event.
Yeah, like this is divine, like honestly, like divine justice. This was a very like exclusive event with like media, influencers. Like Microsoft wanted it to be this huge like celebration at a time when they're, you know, taking away Palestinian lives. And so there was a raffle that Vanya and I entered, and like out of multiple people just got selected. And to me, especially like my faith was like also a driving force behind this. It's like, this has to be from God, that like I just got, you know, this raffle win. And so, yeah, with the whole group, like for a couple of weeks, we prepared like the strategy of how to, you know, like interrupt at the right moment, what words to say to actually try to make an impact within the executives and whatnot. So leading up to that moment, what I'm trying to say is there was a lot of advanced prep. And then when I was in the event, Mustafa Sulaiman, you know, got on stage, and because he's the CEO of Microsoft AI, you know, I had decided he's the person I want to disrupt. And also because of that link that we have of, you know, we're both of Arab descent. You should know what it is like as a Syrian. And so I think what really escalated me and just gave me the courage, I don't want to say courage, but like removed like barriers of fear of freezing, was during his presentation prior to the disruption. He started talking about, like, Microsoft is so important because my dad, who's like a Syrian refugee, like used to be like, you know, a poor taxi driver in the UK, and you would use Microsoft to change his life in XYZ way. And just the contrast of standing on that stage and talking, like trying to appeal to people's emotions using like refugee and immigrant rights, while signing on contracts that cause people to be refugees. Like that was just not lost on me. And it just made it the more, like there was a moment, honestly, like I'll be honest, I was like, I might freeze and just like his talk ends and nothing happens. But when he did that, I was reminded of how these companies like whitewash their crimes, like how they try so hard to portray themselves as changing the world, as empowering refugees, while in reality, just being behind so many of the like issues in our societies and of the occupation in Palestine.
Shame on him. I even saw a video of Ibtihal after the protest, and someone asked her if she was afraid of losing her job. And you said that you were more afraid of writing the code that's killing the people in Gaza than of losing your job, which I found incredibly powerful. Could you share more about what you meant by that?
Yeah. I think it goes back to what I was saying about like the moral guilt, and just also like as a Muslim, which I know many people in the room are, we're not supposed to prioritize like worldly benefits. You know what? Like after our deaths, it doesn't matter, you know, what income I had or what title I had. It's, was I complicit in this genocide? Did I do something to come in the way of this genocide? So I think just like that fear of having even like an ounce of complicity, because of like, you know, the consequences here on my conscience and the consequences like in the hereafter were just way more prominent than, you know, material fears.
And did you anticipate that the reaction would be the way it was, that it would go that viral?
Not at all. None of us expected anything. You know, the goal was twofold. It was address and disrupt the executives who are signing the bloody contracts, and educate Microsoft employees who were in the room or who will hear about it in their email. That was it. Like, we did not think this would have like a global reach. And honestly, I'm really thankful, because I think that led to calls for boycott for like Microsoft and Xbox. And as you mentioned, like there's like a lot of worker movements that are, you know, realizing that disruption is an option. So yeah, we did not anticipate it, but are really grateful for it.
And tell us what happened to you after the protests. You know, both professionally, being fired, loss of access to all of the previous work you'd done at Microsoft, and also personally, you know, how have you been handling it?
Yeah, so I think when Microsoft, like 2 days later, were like, you know, you're fired, that wasn't a huge surprise. But the next steps for me was, okay, I will probably be unemployed for some time, figure things out, and it's okay. Again, my unemployment is not a cost that's above, you know, people in Gaza having to make greater sacrifices. But then, alhamdulillah, like, you know, we have like a belief, like in Islam, that when, like, if you do something, you know, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for justice, more doors are opened that are better. So within like 1 week of getting fired, I got in touch with the Yaqeen Institute, which is led by Dr. Omar Suleiman. And they were looking for someone to work on their like AI, like ethical AI alternatives. And alhamdulillah, like I work with them now, like that. It was within a few days. So yeah, like I would have never imagined like I'd be working at a pro-Palestine nonprofit where I can be like, hey guys, I need a day off because we're like shutting down like this like conference. So like it's just like, this is just to say, like, when you make the intention that, okay, there will be consequences, right? And there will be losses, but therefore a greater good, that's way beyond me. You will not be forsaken, and better opportunities will come up. So that's on the professional side of things. On the personal side of things, I'm also really grateful that this opened a lot of doors for me to organize within Canada. I was very new to the country, like it had been a year and wasn't really tapped in, but just gaining the trust of different like organizing groups too. Like right now, honestly, like I'm part-time at Yaqeen because the other part-time is just organizing against Canadian complicity. And that's also something that this opened that door. I wasn't as, you know, like trusted as a community member to take part in this planning. Yeah.
That really is beautiful. And it just shows that when you give something up, you get something better. Can you share with us, like, what kinds of support or lack of it did you experience from your colleagues, from your community, from people around you? Were there moments that you did feel, okay, yeah, I feel isolated, I do feel a bit discouraged? And if so, what do you think others could have done to support you better during those times? How can we really show up for our community?
Yeah, I would say I think I was on the like more fortunate side of things, which is that because this went so viral, I think I did receive a lot of support from people like offering referrals at their company, or, you know, if it's unsafe for you, like come stay with us. But the reality is when these like disruptions or job losses don't get televised, a lot of people in our community will like lose their job because a Zionist doxed them at an auction, or because like they spoke up within a Zionist company. And I think we have to make sure that we're taking care of everyone who gets doxed or loses their job for Palestine. Like I think in the same way that people showed up for me with like job opportunities, do the same. Like no matter where you are, always ask around. Like, is there anyone who got fired or quit like for Gaza? How can we support them? Whether with, again, career stuff, personal stuff, financially, we have to make it, because that's what Zionists do. Like, if you're like blacklisted because you're so pro-Israel, they'll hire you like wherever.
They'll give you the best job possible.
They'll give you the best job. Like, you'll get a medal. And so similarly, like, we have to make sure we're showing up. When we hear that someone got arrested at an action, is doxxed, we reach out. Like, we don't wait to hear that, you know, it's they've been like going through it for a while. Yeah.
That's really beautiful and very important advice. I think that doesn't happen as often as it should. And I think that's a reminder to all of us within our communities, those of us who, you know, work in businesses, that we can really hire other people who are in these situations, or even provide resources that these people need. I think it's just a reminder for us to look out for people in our communities around us. I'd love to know how Microsoft actually responded, in your view, like both in statements, in action since. Do you think that their response has been adequate at all?
No. So that's like the short answer. But essentially, right after like this, like Microsoft just like in our like termination letters was just like, you're lying and you didn't apologize, you're fired. But then like as No Ajr for Apartheid, there's the whole like campaign organizing against Microsoft. We kept adding pressure. So whenever there was a conference, people would disrupt. Whenever there was like something cool on campus, we would go and be there. Most recently, I flew back to Seattle because we did like an encampment at the HQ, and some people broke into the president's office and had to sit in there. Like, we've just been escalating. The more they give us inadequate responses, that's like the whole, like, something I want to convey is like, these disruptions or actions are not just like one person that does something and then we like pause. It has to be like continued pressure and continued escalation. Even if you don't see the fruits, like Microsoft didn't end the contract because of me, but when I disrupt and someone else disrupts and we keep it going, right now we know that they're at a like really high pressure point where even the president came out and mentioned us and did like a whole like press conference about, we're actually looking, they're doing like an investigation now. We'll see how that goes. But like, they're like, we're looking into whether Israel is misusing the contract. So the pressure is going up and up and up. And so we're hopeful that they're going to crack at some point and realize it's too costly for them, like PR and money wise, to just have us, you know, cause chaos wherever they are.
It really is a lesson for all of us that, you know, never underestimate the impact that any small action can actually have. You've clearly, Ibtihal, had such a big impact on other young people globally as well, with so many drawing inspiration from you, as I'm sure many youth here in Britain are as well. And there are many young people in the room with us today who, like you know, they want to go to a prestigious university. You went to Harvard. I'm sure many here are aiming for Oxbridge or other Russell Group universities. And, you know, then aspiring for a career at a prestigious company, whether tech, whether corporate, any other major industries. And so what advice would you give them as they follow their own paths? What sort of guidance would you share with them as they set out on their own journeys?
Yeah, I think one thing since October 2023 is a lot of these like prestigious institutions or companies have been unmasked. Like Harvard, for example, has been one of the most complicit universities in like investing in Israel and in the apartheid system. I think we are at a point where we really have to, and it's something I did not do, like re-examine what we prioritize in choosing a field, a career, an employer, a university. I think, I mean, I grew up in Morocco and there, like our, what do you call it? Like orientation sessions, like counsel, like, I guess you call them like counseling, school counselors, like the people that like advise you on what to do after high school. It was always like, where can you make the most money, have the fanciest like titles, you know, career growth. It was never like, does this do something good to the world, right? Like we were so focused on like, this is a top university, this is a top company. And at one point, like I tried, like even within Microsoft, I was like, let me do the good work. And I think it just goes, like, I guess my message is just make sure that when you're considering these different aspects, like your passion, your career growth, that you also add, how can I, contribute to the liberation of Palestine, to good for humanity? How can I make an impact with my life? Because I think a lot of us are like, and these are conversations I had with a lot of people at Microsoft before deciding to leave. Like, people would be like, sure, this is a complicit company, but in my free time, I volunteer or I do XYZ. But we have to remember our career is like almost half of our waking hours. Like, we can't live a double life where our career is adding nothing to the world, or at worst harming, Palestinians or any people, and then, balance it out. So there are so many ways within tech, if you're at complicit university, like students are doing a lot. If you go into a field that has some level of complicity, find the orgs that are building alternatives, that are like examining the ethics. There are ways to still pursue these passions or still go to these, helpful institutions while also doing good.
Thank you so much. I think that's some really good advice for the youth here with us today. Let's do another message to people who actually work in these big tech companies. So for other AI engineers or tech workers who are disturbed by what their employers are doing, what advice would you give them? What are also the efforts happening right now that they should be aware of?
Yeah. I think if you find yourself in a complicit environment, like for me personally, I believe either organize to change things from the inside, like make those attempts, just as we say, like give them help from the inside, or leave and find alternatives. Like, I think a third option where, you just stay and try to, find, I guess, like excuses to, just accept that paycheck while doing nothing about the complicity. That is the really harmful part. Like, there are so many different ways to do your part. One is, for some people, like the risk tolerance is just, I'm just going to remove myself and that's it. That is a valid option. For some people, it's, I cannot leave this job. For any reason, like visa, finances, like I need to be at this job until like I find another one. Do something, like organize, find people within your company that are also allies, that are also pro-Palestine. And that's how No Ajr for Apartheid formed. Like, it was just people finding one another, expressing concern about the complicity and genocide, and then going on to become like this powerhouse of people that are scaring like executives in their nightmares. And so find like-minded people and organize together against that complicity.
Thank you so much. Tell us what's next for your activism, and also share with us like any campaigns, goals, or even policy priorities that you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still like very involved with No Ajr for Apartheid, remotely most of the time at HQ sometimes. So
follow their work on Instagram,
yes,
guys.
I was about to say, follow No Ajr for Apartheid. Ajr is AZURE. I guess Azure, I've heard a lot of British people say. So we're still working to end Microsoft's contracts with Israel. No Tech for Apartheid is also another campaign that's targeting Amazon and Google, and their complicity in genocide. So these are campaigns that I think everyone should follow. And right now, like a big call out we have is for Microsoft boycotts. Like, a lot of people don't know that Xbox is Microsoft, and Call of Duty, Candy Crush, all these like big names are within Microsoft, and they're a huge portion of Microsoft's profit. So any gamer in your life, if you're a gamer, make sure that you're looking into who owns like what you're consuming. Like, that's the way that we can hurt Microsoft the most, is our boycott of their gaming division. And then a boycott of Copilot, which is their AI solution. I think there was an acquisition. Yeah, Activision is within Microsoft. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, they just own a lot. So just like look into what Xbox owns and boycott that. They own a lot. The second thing is just, like right now I'm like very focused on like Canadian complicity. We have I think we have similar grievances of like MPs that don't represent us, arms being, we both had like the meaningless recognition while continuing to ship weapons and bombs to Israel through our, actually in Canada, it's on passenger planes. They just load the bullets underneath and you're taking a flight to like Doha and you don't know it's going with weapons to Israel. So just focusing on trying to halt Canadian complicity, and we're seeing some wavering there. So hopefully for both of our countries, like we do reach some high pressure points, and just will not exit until we have full liberation of Palestine, inshallah.
Inshallah. Ibtihal, how do you want people to remember or understand the protest? What do you wish will be its legacy?
I honestly just hope it's normalized. Like, I think there's been such like a massive like viral reaction to it. And honestly, to me, it's like, this should be happening every other day. Like someone should be pointing their fingers at some complicit politician or executive. Like, I don't think we should have a culture. We should, the reason why we have a culture of like exceptionalism around these disruptions is because we're not doing that often enough. So what I hope is just that this becomes, second nature, that anytime someone who's complicit in genocide goes on a stage, they're anticipating that someone will disrupt them. I think that's what I hope for.
And do you have any last words for our community? Anything you want to say?
Don't fall for defeatism. I know, as you said, like we're almost at like the 2-year mark, which is, beyond comprehension. And a lot of people will be like, we've protested and nothing has changed, or we've disrupted this and nothing has changed. And at least in Canada, like some numbers are dwindling where people are like, this is useless. But I just want to remind us that previous struggles for liberation have taken decades, and it was the people's perseverance, the people's resistance for decades or even a century for some struggles that led to liberation. So you never know. We know that Palestine will be free. The when is on us to accelerate. And if we're giving up after 2 years, when, people have been resisting since before 1948, then that's not what we owe Palestine. We owe Palestine to just, keep pursuing the same avenues, exploring new innovative avenues, just not falling for despair the way that the Zionists want us to despair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ibtihal. Very soon we will reach 2 years of genocide in Gaza, a moment that forces each of us to ask ourselves, what have we done and what have we sacrificed? And Ibtihal, your courage has inspired us here and so many people across the world to really reflect and ask themselves, what could be my moment? And that moment doesn't have to be on a stage. It doesn't even have to be in the public eye, but it does have to be real. A moment where you use the position that you are in to act with courage, to refuse silence, to reject complicity, to make a sacrifice for the greater good. And I think, the best part of the conversation today was your message that each one of us has a role to play inside our institutions, in our workplaces, in our communities, and in our daily lives. And I think right now we can all agree that nothing is more important than ending this genocide and ensuring real accountability. Ibtihal, I'd like to thank you so much for that beautiful conversation. We are actually opening it up to an audience Q&A now, where a mic will be passed on. Please get your questions ready.
Dad, thank you so much. I'm just truly inspired today by you. I wanted to ask, obviously our workplaces, they can be in solidarity for Palestine, but we are all using Microsoft at work and we're big organizations. Is Copilot separate? Is it are there more tangible ways of boycotting certain aspects? What do we do?
Hi, Ibtihal. Firstly, welcome to London. I'm currently writing a report on LinkedIn moderation policies, which has obviously spiraled into talking to a lot of tech workers at Microsoft and LinkedIn. Earlier you discussed like preferred avenues. I presume you mean like Palestine and allies at Microsoft. Could you shed any further light on executive and tech worker opposition to speaking out, or any kind of activism at both Microsoft and LinkedIn? I don't know if you're...
Sorry?
Both at Microsoft and LinkedIn. I don't know if you're like familiar with...
Yeah.
Hi. So Israel likes to brag that they use Gaza as a test bed for their weapons development. We can consider AI as an information weapon, and whatever happens in Gaza usually comes over here. So has there been any kind of AI developments that are currently under wraps that you think the public should know about? Obviously, if you have an NDA, don't say anything, but if there is anything that you think that we should know for how AI will impact us negatively going forward, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you. All excellent questions. For the first question about boycotts, this is a really important one, and one that I get a lot. Like similar with like BDS, like boycott, divest, sanctions, we try to make sure that boycott campaigns are like targeted and not, overwhelming to the point where you're like, Microsoft cannot be boycotted. So if you're at a workplace that uses Microsoft or Google, that is not necessarily the target that we emphasize in boycotts, because that's not something that you individually, you can't use, like Proton while everyone else is using like Microsoft or Google. We emphasize, I guess, 3 things. One is, again, like Xbox is like a third, I think, or a quarter of Microsoft's revenue. So boycotting just their gaming is like makes a huge impact on the company. Second one, Copilot is optional and separate. Like if your workplace is like, you have to use Word and Outlook and Teams, sure. But Copilot is like their AI solution that you can choose not to use. And which by using, like you're providing like more opportunities for Microsoft to improve this technology that we know is harmful. So that's the second one. Third one is just in your personal use, like not using Outlook, which like we had a journalist that was covering like this boycott. And then he was like, I mean, they say don't use these things for your personal life, but no one is choosing to use Teams and Outlook. They're so bad that like, for most people, it's like you're being forced by your employer. But if that's something you choose to do, that's what we emphasize. It's just your personal choices. And I'll say to that very quickly, like, it's really unfortunate that we've just accepted these monopolies. Like that's the root of the issue, right? Like the fact that I can't come out here and be like, yeah, tell your employer to switch to X instead is because as like tech workers, we've been sold this whole like, you can't compete with these companies. You have to just work there and improve their product. But we really, especially in the wake of all the complicity in genocide and apartheid, like there are so many ways to build alternatives. Like, for example, I know someone who realized Asana is complicit and built like an ethical like work management platform so that ethical companies switch out of Asana. So similarly, what I'm trying to say is if you're someone in tech or in business, consider, being part of these like alternative ecosystems that we have to build so that we're not just fighting Meta shadow ban, reluctantly using Microsoft so that we have alternative solutions. There was a talk with Ahmed ad-Din that Palestinians and allies had planned, and then bam, like, no, you can't host it, even though people have brought like Zionist speakers before, greenlit. And so the repression is really bad, not just in these like overt ways, but also in the more like just all the discouragement. Like it's like if you comment and you mention Gaza and you mention genocide, your manager gets contacted. But if you're like, you are a terrorist, there's no consequence. So it's at every level. It's like in the forums, it's in the town halls, like questions just getting deleted. It's again, like financial, like that boggled my mind. The fact that someone's income was reduced because they spoke up for genocide. So the repression is pretty bad. And again, like that's part of why, all these escalations are happening. Like your methods are not working. We'll just do it our way. Yeah. So that's already happening. Like a lot of the facial recognition technology that was tested in Palestine unwillingly is being used by different police departments in other countries for like facial detection at like actions or protests. I think beside like the facial recognition, I think what we're seeing with like the speech surveillance, like the conversations being like spied on and synthesized and transcribed, I don't see our like police departments being like beyond, you know, using that in the future. So I like when we say like Palestine, none of us will be free until Palestine is free. Like it's not just a slogan we repeat. It's because truly, like as you said, like Palestine is where all these oppressive technologies are being unfortunately tested. And so when we fight against this oppression and Palestinian liberation, it's also because we know that this is not an isolated instance of oppression.
Assalamu alaikum, Ibtihal. First of all, congratulations on your new role with Yaqeen. A lot of people were proud of you, especially here in the UK, also in the Canadian community. And I want to ask, mashallah, a lot of people look up to organizations like Yaqeen. And a lot of Muslim organizations are trying to see what they can improve, how to be better. So in your experiences with Yaqeen, and then as you said, your organizations in Canada, what advice would you give to people, either Muslim or non-Muslim, but just in these organizations and how they can elevate our game? Because we see an example that's doing great, but we need to see more of that here.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. I would love to campaign for Palestine, do whatever I can for Palestine, for working for these big tech companies like Microsoft, Facebook. Unfortunately, I don't have a great academic track record as you do. So I just wanted to ask, how can someone like me who did bad in his GCSEs, no A levels, went to a very low rank university, work for a company like Microsoft or Facebook and do whatever I can for Palestine?
Hi, thank you. You're such an inspiration to us. Thank you for being here today. I just wanted to highlight something. We have a number of activists in East London that are particularly being targeted within their jobs, in their workplaces for holding a political view, simply by by being pro-Palestinian. You may have touched on this already, but please elaborate. What advice would you give to somebody that's being doxxed?
Let me go through, these three. So first question about like Muslim institutions. I think one thing that just like was a big appeal for me from Yaqeen was it's not about like Islam in isolation with like social justice. Like I think a lot of our institutions will focus maybe on like the just like pure like spiritual or like practice side of things without realizing, you know, our fight for justice in Palestine is an Islamic duty. Like I wish like we didn't like walk into mosques and they're talking about every topic except Palestine and not supporting like Muslims that got like arrested for Palestine and whatnot. So I think is just on an individual level, like we can encourage our institutions, our imams to just emphasize this. Like there's nothing that should take priority over this. And then secondly, I think for like any, I guess like think tank style institutions, I think for social media, like we had this issue where we were like, this is the tech of like the West and Zionists, we're not going to touch it. And then it, like by not developing our like competitors, by not being involved in the policies surrounding these technologies, now it's like biting us because now we're getting shadow banned. Now people are like getting Zionist ads when they're like watching YouTube. And so I think this whole like wave of AI, like AI has had terrible consequences as I've been mentioning today. But we can't be like, okay, we're going to sit this out. Like AI is terrible. And then in like 5 years, we had no say in policy. We had no say in how our communities engage with AI. So just trying to be ahead of the game versus dealing with just consequences once again. So that's on that. And then the second question. Yes. I don't know if you should join Microsoft, Google, Amazon. I think honestly, my biggest advice right now is what I was mentioning of let's find our own ethical alternatives. Like on the one hand, you're not bound to like Zionist funding. You're not bound to a boss that tells you should support Israelis, not Palestinians. I think if you find yourself in these complicit environments, it's good to organize, but I wouldn't necessarily advise you to like aim to go there and organize, because it is so much more impactful and needed, like necessary for us right now to have alternative ecosystems. And then on the doxing, I think that's one where it's really less on you and more on like our communities to step up and like have systems in place. Like if you were doxxed, are there lawyers that we know that can provide you with like legal counsel? If like your job is now at risk, are there people in like similar fields that can, support with like referrals? I think the like Zionists have really been misusing this whole like anti-Semitism, like allegations and whatnot to like ruin people's lives. Like I know people in Canada who've just been like out of their work for like over a year now. And the issue is that we don't, like, as we were saying, as Leanne was saying as well, like we have to create systems. And No Ajr for Apartheid, for example, on a much smaller scale, like everyone who got like fired from Microsoft for organizing, we have a whole like bank of like ethical companies you can work out, and this person can refer you, and this is like a lawyer that can help you with this situation. Like we've just tried to do that at the scale of our people in our campaign. But I think like as Muslims or as pro-Palestinian crowds, yes, like our focus and our compass is Palestine, but we also have to make sure the movement stays strong in the belly of the beast here. And one way we do that is by making it less costly to speak up, because you spoke up, got doxxed, we have your back. Yeah.
I'm actually an employee at Microsoft. I'm here with my colleague. And I want to thank you, first of all. After your protest, within 1 hour, I had signed up for No Ajr for Apartheid, joined the organization. I had read up on the articles which were published a few weeks earlier about Microsoft's complicity. And I started to have running battles with Zionists in the senior leadership connection. It's like an internal Facebook page where supposedly the senior leadership read it, to the point where like I was calling them out. I was basically fact checking them and calling them out as liars and genocide deniers. I thought I'd get in trouble, but weirdly I didn't, which is always a good thing. They tried blocking emails with the word Palestine in it. I was the one who suggested a workaround for that, so that we can send emails and people could, when they want to leave Microsoft, they can blast around emails around the company and try and get more recruits. We have found it difficult in London. We're kind of far removed, but we've done other things as well that I can't really talk about. So maybe we can talk afterwards.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, to clarify one note that you mentioned that I should have brought up, there was a point in the summer, I forget what month, where Microsoft started blocking emails that said Palestine or Gaza or genocide. Like they had to be approved by a human, which would take like hours, sometimes would not happen, like they would not get reviewed. That's how much they feared like how much people were like speaking up. So that goes back to your question on repression. There's no other country that was like blocked. Like you could send an email with any other country name, all good. But if you mention Palestine, and as you mentioned, comrades found a workaround and sent an email called "We're Not Going Anywhere" that mentioned Palestine, Gaza with like tweaks. And that's how we keep like there's no repression that should make the movement die down.
Thank you for your sharing your journey. It was very heart touching. My question is, with the AI and the monitoring of the devices, like what Israel has done in the Middle East. We've seen what they've done, targeted attack in Qatar and in Lebanon. How safe is our media, our telephone, everything in Western? Are we monitored? And how can we protect? Because I recently seen in one of the social media that Israel is launching a satellite that would be only monitoring all the communication in the Middle East. So how can we protect ourselves from the getting into our devices? Thank you very much.
Thank you to both of you. Both are inspirational to me. And it probably is a question for both of you as well. So, we're talking about ecosystems and building our own platforms and things like that. And I feel like we're at the talking stage at the moment. And a lot is happening, especially in Islamic finance and things like that. But for platforms to be an alternative to Microsoft, how quickly do you think we can do that? And is there a plan for something like that to be replaced?
Hi guys, Assalamu alaikum. May Allah firstly bless you for your efforts in this life and the next. Ameen. I wanted to say that the statement, "We're not free until Palestine is free," rings a bell with an increase in far-right propaganda. I'm sure, Leanne, you're aware of Nigel Farage scrapping the indefinite right to remain, with our loved ones potentially losing the land they've lived on for years, which they have the legal right to reside on, and we as a society immediately actioning to help and protect them to stay in the UK. Where is our complicity in what's happening in Gaza, where our ummah is struggling, and how we cooking to help our loved ones but fail our brothers and sisters in Gaza? And what strategies do you both recommend to target both the internal targets with the far right, and how can we learn to reciprocate that energy with supporting Gaza?
Just on the far right, the sister at the front very rightly said that question. I think that's a fear in a lot of us right now, a fear in so many communities across the country, not just ours. But I actually think the response to that is exactly what we're doing right now here in Ilford, coming together as a community, having these very important conversations, and really also like the political work that we're doing as well. So like standing against them when they fear it the most in elections. I think that's such a powerful tool that our community didn't really think about before Gaza, right? Because Gaza was the reason why so many of us across the country decided enough was enough. And Gaza really awoken us to this system that's just so broken in this country, this broken political system. And I think really we have a chance there to fight back. Council elections are coming up, guys, in 2026. There's no way Reform are winning in Ilford, we know that, because we own this community. But in many other communities across the country, people are worried, and we have to stand beside them. But more so, I think, again, we're learning from Ibtihal here. We have to be there for our brothers and sisters everywhere, right? We have to educate people wherever they are. And it's so important to just come together and have these discussions. I'm sure there are many in the room, by the way, if you have any interest in wanting to stand as a political candidate, a political councillor, then do let us know, because we'd love to help. We're here to help from the experiences that we've had ourselves.
Yeah, honestly, nothing very perfect answer, nothing to add to that. And yeah, there's so many avenues to target that. Like there's like media, there's organizing, there's not just one single way, and just like tap in the ways that you are like good at and can help with. I think, okay, a big issue we have is money-wise. We have a lot of focus, and it is helpful, like don't get me wrong, but we're too focused on just being reactionary, meaning like charity and like relief, and not trying to address the root causes of these issues. Like a lot of people, for example, will like never donate to like bail funds that support activists that got arrested. But it's like the reason why you're having to donate to Gaza is because someone's house got bombed, because this MP was complicit. Like if you go back to the root, we're not really funneling, like our like wealthy and our institutions are not funneling as much money into organizing and like building these alternatives. So I think like and that's something like I try to do, like when I engage with like big like Canadian, like Islamic umbrellas, like can we have some like amount that just supports like startup founders that will go and build like an ethical alternative to XYZ? Because yes, we get shadow banned on Meta. Instead of, just fighting that, let's solve the problem. We're not using Meta. So my short answer to you is, I think there's a lot of talented people. I think we have to put our money and our mentorship behind them to be able to create these alternatives versus putting the onus on them. And similarly, like support our organizers. We need both. Like we have to continue like, you know, supporting like our people in Gaza, but we cannot only keep like putting band-aids on. Like why are we having to donate to Gaza? Like let's solve those. So I think we need to strike like a balance in how our wealth is being used. And right now I think it's pretty imbalanced. And as you said, we need that mindset shift. And then the first question about, our phones. Honestly, I mostly use Signal these days, even for like personal communications. I do not trust Meta apps because we've seen, like we've gotten leaks that they've leaked like pro-Palestinian activist messages. They've leaked Palestinians' messages. Even when we were talking, it was via Signal. I think we have to, like, this is not to fear monger. Like you can still use these apps to an extent or another. I'm still on Instagram to like raise awareness, to reach out to people in Gaza. But for all our like sensitive topics, we have to move away from Meta and just be cautious of just using like encrypted alternatives. Even though they say like Meta apps are like encrypted, this and that, we know they have ulterior motives.
Hi there. Assalamu alaikum. Firstly, thank you very much for standing up to those bullies. Just a question on tech. I think you've already touched on this slightly. Given the importance that the high tech and heavy tech has in everything that we do, it's difficult for us to decide. You've touched on Signal, you've touched on some of these already, but it's very difficult for us to decide who we can trust and who we can't. Would you say, and as somebody who's from the west coast of America, you've worked in that industry, are there any up and coming techs that we could keep an eye out for? And what's your view on, say, something like Apple as a replacement for Microsoft?
This question is mainly for Leanne, but Ibtihal, please do feel free to weigh in, although you guys might have touched upon this earlier. Leanne, so last year, while in your early 20s, you ran to be Member of Parliament for Ilford North, and subhanAllah, were very, very, very close to actually winning. But your journey didn't start there in your early 20s. There must have been years of build-up and experience to actually getting to that point, starting maybe in your teens. And as you can see, we've got quite a young audience here. My question to you is, what's your advice to these 14, 15, 16-year-olds who are getting started on their journeys now? Maybe, inshallah, to be the next Leanne Mohamed, to be the next MP representing their constituency.
Before I ask my question, can I just say something about the gentleman here? I have a daughter who used to be a staff sergeant in the intelligence corps and worked at GCHQ. And the answer about your phone is yes. They can listen to anything. They have trigger words, and whatever word they choose, they can listen to that phone call. She's a stonemason now. Don't know whether that makes a difference. All right. My question is, as I walk down the stairs, and even now, I feel a little bit like a sore thumb. Yeah? Is it necessary to the success of the whole movement to be able to fix that broken politics of which you speak, for us to get outside and get our action outside what I would call the Muslim bubble? For instance, you look at you two ladies, we look at the event we went to in the library when Noor was there. This is effectively a Muslim event. And I'm asking you, in order for the whole thing to be successful, do we have to get outside that effective bubble where Muslims talk to Muslims?
Thank you so much for your question, Glenn. Glenn was actually someone who was such a key part of my campaign, and He's honestly someone that I'm so grateful for his efforts. He was canvassing on the doorsteps with me in Hainault and Fairlop, all over Ilford. And honestly, he knows, and we all know, that our campaign in Ilford North was one that was very diverse. And the best part about it was that we reached out to every part of our community. That was the aim. And the aim with Ilford in Conversation as well is to do the very same. But as you're aware, different events will cater to many different groups in our communities. In our launch, where we had the event in July with Jeremy Corbyn and Andrew Feinstein, I think I felt like a sore thumb in that event because the majority of the people there were very diverse, but that's exactly what we want. And I think by having these events with different guests, we are catering to different groups in our community. And the aim is to bring all of these groups together, because that is what Ilford is about. That is what every community is about. It's about believing in a pluralistic society, in coming together with our diverse beliefs and values, whatever they are. And so I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. I do hope you can bring more of your friends next time. Yeah, let's give it up for Glenn. Thank you so much. I'll give it to Ibtihal to answer the next question and then I'll come back.
So I think up and coming, I think actually there's an account called No Tech for Apartheid Ireland. So it's like the Ireland division of the No Tech for Apartheid campaign that recently posted a guide to how to big techify your life. So they had like encrypted, more secure alternatives that are largely based in like Europe, outside the UK and the US, to like Office, Meta, like all these things that we use that are big tech and, as we mentioned, like surveilled, complicit. I think that would be my recommendation, is looking up No Tech for Apartheid Ireland and seeing like their pinned post for just like a comprehensive list of these like up and coming, some of them more established, some of them more startup-y alternatives to big tech. Apple, definitely not. Like I think Apple is as complicit, if not more complicit, in oppression as these other companies, like especially with their exploitation in the DR of Congo, and even like in terms of like the Palestinian cause, they have literally fired people for like speaking up, like within like nothing like disruptive, just employees speaking up against Apple's like partnerships with Israeli universities, partnerships with the IDF. Bam, fired. So Apple is not any less complicit to my knowledge. And I think we have to move past big tech overall.
Yeah, so many of you will think that my political, I don't know what you want to call it, journey started at the age of 23 when I ran against West Streeting. But actually, I got into public activism from a very young age. Many of you will know the story. When I was 15, the Jack Petchey Speak Out Challenge. I did a speech titled Birds Not Bombs when I was a student at Wanstead High School, and it won with so much applause from the audience. But then after, unfortunately, the Zionist lobby caught of it, and I was called a good little Miss ISIS girl, a suicide bomber, an evil anti-ISIS anti-Semitic recruiter who needs to be burnt alive, and just so much abuse was thrown my way just for speaking about the plight of the Palestinian people. And there was so much efforts to silence me, but thankfully I had such a supportive community around me, and from that moment on, I had so much overwhelming support that really gave me the strength to continue. And I think that's the importance of having supportive community around us. So that's where it really started. And my advice to young people here is, firstly, you can go back and watch that video and see more about my journey on different podcasts I've done if you want to know more. But secondly, I'd say never compromise your values or your morals. Always stay true to yourself and never be afraid. You know, when I was 15, I was a bit scared at first, but I think that's what made me into who I am today. In reality, you'll notice so many of those people are keyboard warriors. They are nowhere to be seen here. And although it was, a personal safety instance, it was something that I felt I had more support from the community more than those who were out to get me in that way. So I just think, know that you are doing the right thing. You will have people supporting you behind you. But even if you don't, just remember that, just make sure you are always speaking the truth, even if you are standing alone. Always stay true to yourself and to your faith. I know there are many Muslims with us here. And that's something key in our faith that drives us to do good always in our lives, in every single situation. And as Ibtihal said, standing up for Palestine is an Islamic duty that we all have to remember. But more so, it's a moral duty, and it's also a humanitarian cause that every human can and must support. So thank you so much for the young scouts who've joined us here today. I hope to see you guys at future events as well. Just to add on to Glenn as well, I wanted to say that our next event in October will be an Ilford in Conversation event that is very different, and it's going to be actually with NHS doctors. We're having a public meeting on the NHS. We will be discussing privatisation. As you guys know, the Health Secretary is unfortunately our MP. And so we have a very important discussion coming up in October. Details will be sent out to you soon. I know for sure that we'll get a very different crowd in. We're going to have many local doctors coming as well. So it'll be an honour for you to join us there. And finally, I want to thank our guest, Ibtihal Aboussad, for sharing her story, her wisdom and her courage with us today. I think we can all agree what we've heard tonight is not just a story about one individual, but it has been a call for all of us to look at, where we stand, how we resist, and what we are willing to actually risk for justice. And as we approach 2 years of this genocide in Gaza, it's easy for us to feel despair. We've been protesting for 2 years. We've been boycotting for 2 years. We've been having so many events, but what has changed is what you'll think. But really, gatherings like this remind us that we are not powerless and we are not alone. And believe me, what they want is for us to stop. But really, we can't stop because that's exactly what they want. They want us to belittle our efforts, think, you know what, we've tried everything, it's not working. They want us to feel like that, exhausted, tired. Just leave it, nothing's going to change. But the strength is where we continue, is in how we continue. And so I am just very grateful for Ibtihal for joining us today. I think we had many great reminders that we will all take back with us. I also want to thank once again our hosts here at Hidden Space and the wonderful team behind Nonstop upstairs who continue to show what solidarity looks like in action in our communities. So please support them as they have supported us. Grab a chai on the way out. And most importantly, I'd like to thank each and every single one of you for joining us today, for bringing your energy, your questions, and your commitment to justice. Always remember that our strength is in our community. And as promised, this is really only the beginning. We look forward to seeing you at next month's Ilford in Conversation. And as I said, we'll be sharing details very soon, so keep a lookout. Before I close, I actually want to give a very important call out for October the 11th. Please save the date. October the 11th, we are aiming to make this the biggest demonstration for Palestine that the UK has ever seen. So I urge you to come out, bring your friends, bring your families, bring every single person that you know, and let's make our voices heard in central London on October the 11th. And finally, let's leave tonight inspired by Ibtihal's courage, and let's carry that spirit into our daily lives because the struggle continues and so must we. Thank you so much, guys.